is July the 10th, 2022. Christopher Carter is our guest speaker tonight. Hope you enjoy.
It is really wonderful to be here. I think I've had such a rich weekend. Maybe it's because tonight was my third communion in as many days. That might have something to do with it. So communion, once a day or so, it averages out. That might be responsible. We spent most of our weekend with the folks at the Well of Nashville, and of course some of you all were there with us. And, y'all might do things different than they do, but to me it really all feels like one family. It feels like the same heart, the same desire to follow Jesus. That part feels the same no matter where we are. The expressions, of course, are different for each place, which is really beautiful and wonderful to see. But I just feel like the entire weekend we've been here, we've been with one group of people. And that's a great feeling. It's a great thing. And again, I don't know, we were just talking about it during the break there, but I'm not sure if it's an effect of we're all growing, so maybe that's why it feels like it keeps getting better. Or maybe it actually is getting better, or maybe the best is yet to come. I really don't know. But I'm having a hard time thinking of a time in Nashville that I have enjoyed more than this weekend. So I'm just sitting here tonight with Melissa, and we're listening to the worship, and I'm just like on cloud nine with Jesus, just having a great time. But I wanted to tell you something really funny to begin this evening that I hope will make you feel a lot better about yourself. When you realize that if you have any similarities with my story in any of these ways, you'll be like, well, okay, I'm not so bad. He's more messed up than I am, It's always helpful to make those comparisons. Well, I remember early on discovering that there was a fivefold ministry. And I've told you my story before. Many of you know my testimony. I was the president of the Baptist Student Union at the College of Charleston, so we did not know there was a Holy Spirit. Like, no one told us that. And just because God has an amazing sense of humor, without anybody asking for it, God decided, I will introduce this group of Baptist students at the College of Charleston to the Holy Spirit without them knowing it's even a thing. And that it was as comical as it sounds. I mean, it really was. I'm sure we looked really funny just sort of discovering this for the first time. I had no grid. No one tells you you're a cessationist. No one goes around in Sunday school going, okay, as a member of this church, you're a cessationist. You don't believe God does stuff anymore. No one says that to you. It just sort of is in the lack of teaching. It's in the lack of any kind of acknowledgement that God does stuff. So then it happens, and you see miracles for the first time in your life, and God starts talking to you, and then you're face to face with, I've been a cessationist. You figure out that word really quickly. So in all that time, of discovering the Holy Spirit, we were, going to a Baptist church. I never knew how many sort of secret Holy Spirit ninjas there were hanging out in Baptist churches in Charleston, South Carolina. But they could see, the Holy Spirit happening to someone. And they would, come up to you, after the service and be like, hey, there's a prophet speaking at this other church in town tonight. You want to go? And you're like, what's a prophet? And then they take you there. And, this guy's from South Africa because every prophet was from South Africa in the late 90s, early 2000s that came to South Carolina. I don't know why, but they were all South African. And so they, South African prophetic minister, I don't even know what I've gotten myself into. He's doing the meeting. I've been told sort of in a general sense, he's going to teach a little bit and then he's going to start giving people prophetic words. I still don't know what those are. And so he's giving his message. So first time I've been to a meeting like this, there's 200 plus people in this room. It's packed. And this South African guy stops his message. He hasn't even got to the prophecy part. And he goes, I just feel the name Chris in my mouth. And again, I got to realize that at the college I'm studying physics. So there's a very strong rational part of my brain that works still to this day. I'm very thankful for it. So I'm a cynic by nature. I need a lot of proof. And so when someone says, I've got the name Chris in my mouth, the logic kicks in. And I'm like, okay, statistically, this is a room of 200 plus people. There's probably 3 Chris's in here. So I mean, he had a fair chance of getting that one right. Like, well, let's see where this goes, charlatan, And so no one's raising their hand, And I'm starting to get frustrated because like seconds are ticking by, but each one feels like an hour. And I'm like, where are all the Chris's? Like, golly, get up, people. What's your problem, And nothing's happening. And so finally, he's just like, I really feel like I heard the Lord there. Like the name Chris is in my mouth. And finally, I'm like, I think it's me, my name is Chris, And so, he does what they do, like he calls you out and sort of, read my mail, sort of told me things that only he could know and sort of prophesies a future. Now, at this time, when I say we, it's like me, some friends. I mean, Melissa was around then. It was like discovering this brand new world. And so people were talking about the fivefold ministry. And of course, when you're raised in Baptist church, all you know is that there's pastors and then there's these deacons, which seem to cause a lot of problems in the church. I mean, that's all I know, is that they could be a real pill. The deacons always seem to be getting in the way of something, Whatever the pastor wanted to do to see God move, the deacons would be there to stop it, And then you find out that they're all Freemasons. That's a story for another day. Okay, but for right now, let's just focus on that, you knew about pastors, and I knew that there were deacons and maybe elders, but all of a sudden, an evangelist, okay, that's like Billy Graham. And all of a sudden, there's prophets. That's when you get them together. There's apostles, there's prophets, you got the evangelist, the pastor, the teacher. Now, I'll be honest, I'm hearing this for the first time, and I'm watching this prophet do what he's doing, and they're teaching about the fivefold ministry. And I really wanted to be an apostle because, no joke, it was mostly coming out of insecurity. All right, so like they're talking about apostles like these are the guys, like these are the ones, like they lead the church, and they do all the miracles. And they're the coolest of the fivefold. I mean, I don't know if that's how they meant to present it, but that's how it was hitting me. And I really wanted to be that. And most of it, again, is my own insecurity coming out. What I really wanted is for people to think I was great. I mean, I wanted affirmation. I wanted someone to think I was special. I wanted someone to be like, isn't he the best thing ever? So I was like, I kind of want to be an apostle, and it didn't help back then too that, prophets would tell you things, and I'm not mad at them, but I wish I could have a word with them today. I wish I could go back and remember when you gave me that word 20 years ago? You know what you didn't say? This is not going to work out anything like I'm saying it to you or any way that you think it's going to work out. And this is going to be way harder than anything I'm telling you. So I give you this grand word, but what I'm not saying is you're going to wait a lot. There's going to be a long period of time before stuff works out. You're going to count the cost more than you ever thought you were going to. And none of this is going to take place like it's sounding in this room when I'm giving the word. Now, if they just phrased everything that way and then said the word, I think we would have done better with prophecies in general. Just give me a lead up to what this is going to cost me, But here I am in my 20s, early 20s, and you've got prophets calling me out. I mean, it seemed like every meeting. I would, they wouldn't always have the name Chris in their mouth, but when they do their thing after the message and they start looking around to see who they're going to give a word to, I'm like, it's only a matter of time. And then they'd be like, you right there, God has a word for you. Here we go. So no one was saying back then, hey, these are some grand ideas, but this is going to be a journey, and it's going to require way more self-discipline than what we're talking about in these meetings. There's going to be so much to this that isn't woo-woo. That's just like nuts and bolts, everyday kind of stuff that you're going to go through. And you're along for that ride, and God's going to make something great out of this life, But I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I hear their prophetic words, and I read every book on the fivefold ministry I could get my hands on, and every time I read about the apostle, I was like, okay, I can fit myself into that. I can do that, And I did, and I feel like I tried pretty hard, to be an apostle. In my early 20s, And, Melissa knows, And when you're just searching things out and you're young and you think that you've got this call on your life, I mean, it's kind of an embarrassing time for anybody looking back, because all you know back then is to try to emulate the people that are doing the job that you think you're supposed to have. So I watched how the South African prophets and apostles did their work, and I tried to do it. And I watched how other apostolic people did what they did. And, I think during that process, I discovered Bill Johnson at some point. I tried to do what he did. You're just trying to emulate the people that you're like, I think I'm supposed to be doing what that guy's doing, And so, I would do mission work in Europe and everywhere we go. I mean, I'm trying to do the apostolic things. I mean, I'm praying for people. I'm giving prophetic words. I'm trying to impart stuff in my early 20s. And just hoping that this is going to manifest like the prophet said it would, Read everything I could get my hands on, eventually come across Arthur Aaron Katz, who wrote this book called Apostolic Foundations. And I went to go hear him talk in Raleigh, North Carolina. I read his book and I thought, this is way different than what everyone else is talking about, because Art really raised the standard on what would qualify as truly apostolic. Art was really into, this is going to cost you. He was like, if it's apostolic, you better get ready to be beaten for it. That's kind of his message. You're not getting through it if you're just, and this is his words, not mine, but he would be like, listen, the apostles aren't the fat cats in suits leading church. The apostles are the ones with the dirt under their fingernails who've been beaten for Jesus. That's who you're looking for. So he was very anti what was going on in America with the fivefold ministry, because he didn't think it met the standard. He didn't think it met a true apostolic standard. What Art was seeing was, this is just another name for, we want to be the leaders in the church and everybody do what we say. And maybe there's some miracles to accompany it, or maybe not, or whatever. But the fact is, they weren't bearing on their body the marks of Jesus. And so Art was like, forget it. We're going to wait until we see the real thing. So I read his book and listened to him talk, and I was like, I'm not sure I want to be an apostle anymore. Is there another thing I can be? He's making this sound hard, But still, I was trying to do the things that I felt like I was supposed to do. And I don't regret any of it. It's all part of a journey. It's all part of a story. God knows exactly what he's doing. But did I feel frustrated? Yes, I really did. I can't tell you how hard I worked to just get something going in the Spirit to do what I thought I was supposed to do. And I would just stress over, especially when we would go do mission work in Europe, and you're standing there looking at a group of foreign people and you're about to pray for healing and miracles and prophetic words. And I was like, oh, Jesus, here we go, And because God's so good, I saw some amazing things. I saw really cool miracles and everything else, but I can never tell you that I felt like I was being me during that time. And that's okay. That's how God has you for a little while. You're just sort of emulating what you think you're supposed to do. And then, of course, this fateful day comes, that was, I don't know, more or less a decade after I learned about the fivefold ministry, which is now like 12 years ago for me. But this date comes around 2010, where the Lord opens the eyes of my heart, and I experience being in the heavens like John was experiencing in Revelation. And it didn't matter what I had seen or experienced up until that moment. When that happened, I felt like me. There was something about that process of having all of my senses fire up and to be looking at him across a table in the heavens and to know that's Jesus. And we're having this conversation in real time. I can't tell you how much it made all of my other pursuits seem utterly meaningless. Being there with him. All of my desires to be something just went to, it melted in this moment of just sitting across a table with him. And I thought in that moment, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. This is all I need. This is all I really want. I like this. This is what I was in it for the whole time. Who cares what happens from it? I like being close to you. This works for me, And of course, as you all know, I've told you this story 100 times if I've told it once. This inaugural journey ends. with him bringing me to the Father, and the Father opening up this door into this lush green garden, and the Father saying, Christopher, you can come here and walk and talk with me as often as you like. And I did. And I really stopped thinking about all of those apostolic intentions that I had for all those years, and I'm supposed to be this, and it's supposed to look like this, and there's supposed to be this much power coming down from heaven, and it's supposed to result in these miracles, and all these things are supposed to happen. I was content being in the garden with him for an hour every morning. And I'm telling you, I killed an hour every morning easy. Spending time with Jesus, walking around the garden. I had no other expectation of what was going to happen. Now, this is how Jesus works. Like, he gets you in the door, then he closes the door behind you, and he's like, gotcha, Now that you like this, here we go. Now that I'm showing you what life is like in the place that I ascended to at the right hand of the Father, let me show you what I do up here. Let me show you what goes on in this kingdom that's incredibly active and incredibly diverse and rich, and it's got story and adventure and everything else. And so I didn't know he had it planned. Like, Christopher, you want to find out about the stars and about the constellations and the Mazzaroth? I bet you'll like that. And so we discovered the Mazzaroth together and the constellations and what all that means. And I thought, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for this, And then that wasn't enough. The Lord was like, hey, you want to find out about angels, that stuff that people say don't ever do, you'll get deceived? Sounds just like something Jesus would bring up, So he goes right for it and says, let's talk about this, and let me introduce you to this angelic world. And as we've been talking about over the weekend, y'all know, all he's doing is inviting me into his world. That's all that's going on there. He's just letting me know, Christopher, this is how I live. This is what my life is like. And he's got a life. He's not like bored like in the heavens right now. And again, I was talking about this morning at the well, that we just need a reminder that Jesus isn't sitting like up at the right hand of the Father, and he spends all day watching a ticker tape of all of our prayers go by, and he spends all of his hours simply watching the prayers come in and answering them. Like, he does that job really well, and he's got a great staff to help. But that's not all he's doing, right? And we sometimes almost, diminishes the wrong word. I'm going to go with relegate him to this one simple task of he's just up there watching the human prayers go by so that he can answer them and help our lives, and that's his job. Folks, he's moving around. He's got a life to live. He is a human being. He's just a resurrected God human being, but he was raised with physical stuff. He still ate. He still did stuff. And when he ascended to the Father, he ascended as a physical, touchable human being. He didn't leave that behind. He's going places. He's traveling around. He's meeting with angels and saints, and he's got agendas. He's creating. He's doing engineering projects. Hence, if I go, I'll prepare a place for you. What's he been doing for 2 millennia? Preparing a place. He's in a massive engineering project for the last 2,000 years. He's got a life. And it's amazing to watch it. You see this Jesus that isn't this kind of figment of a spiritual consciousness or something like that. And he's just, again, up there sitting at the right hand of the Father as the chief apostle. My job is to answer all of your prayers 24 hours a day. He does it. He's got plenty of ability to do that and do all of this other stuff. And when you see him living and you see him interacting, and you see him conversing with angels and animals and the garden and the Father. And it's a life. It's a rich, full life. And all I'm thinking the whole time I'm up there is that if nothing else ever happened, I'm content. We don't have to prove anything anymore. I'm good right here. But it's not enough for him, right? Because he knows I'm content, but he's like, just wait. I've got you in the door. I messed you up with the Mazzaroth, then messed you up with the angels and the whole nature connection there. Well, let me show you who you are when you're raised from the dead. Let me show you the inheritance that I've prepared for you. why don't I start showing you how you're going to live when you're raised incorruptible? And all of a sudden, I'm seeing a calling and a job and a purpose that didn't have anything to do with things that I knew here. And they didn't depend on things I knew here. I had all these great, apostolic intentions, that for better or for worse were frustrating or unfulfilled or, I don't know, confusing at times. And then I just watched what I was doing there in the heavens with him. And I see myself sailing around the heavens and ferrying people from one side of the heavens to the other. And oftentimes, it's like I've got the best eternal job in the world. I get to bring people to see their inheritance. They get to get on my ship, and I get to take them to the place that Jesus prepared for them. I get to be the bus driver that simply stops at all the stops and goes, guess what? This one's for you. This one's for you. Oh, that was your stop? That's what he prepared for you. I have one of the best eternal jobs ever. Well, some of you may not like it. That's fine. It's not for you. But for me, it feels like me. And there's no work in me doing that. There's no sense of this striving to be something. I'm just up there and doing it. I would watch myself sail around the heavens. I would watch myself ferry people wherever they needed to go. I'd see myself interacting with the angels as we did all those things. And I discovered for myself a calling that never had anything to do with proving something here. Anything. I did that job as well when I was homeschooling the kids for a few years and Melissa was working to keep our family afloat, as I did when she was home and I was teaching high school. I did that job as well when I was teaching high school as I do now, traveling around and talking about these things. My ability to do that job is the same no matter what my outward circumstances are in this earthly sojourn. Now, if you haven't figured out where I'm going with this yet, I'm talking about identity. And I'm talking about a source for your identity and a source for your purpose that never depends on something here in this temporal zone. It has its origin and its fulfillment and its contentment in a place that Jesus has prepared for us. Do you know, sometimes I think that people that struggle with the question, why am I here? Or do I have a reason to live? Or do I have a reason to carry on? Do I have a reason to be excited? Do I have a reason to pursue the Lord? Do I have a reason to keep growing? That kind of what is the meaning of my life question. I think how God's designed this, it's just one man's opinion, right? So let's take it with a grain of salt. I think how God's designed this is that if we find that identity and meaning and purpose there, it supersedes everything here. And there is no amount of success or failure. There's no amount of feeling, well, I'm really living it out now. Or no, I'm home teaching the kids for a few years, homeschool. Or no matter what it is that I'm doing, it doesn't change who I am when I am with him in those heavenly places. Are y'all following what I'm saying? That sense of what's my reason to live, if that depends on these circumstances here, and if that depends on what you can see with biological mortal eyes, can I tell you, you are probably set up for long periods of frustration and questioning and possibly depression and a lot of crying out at night, oh God, what's my reason to live? It can get really confusing really fast because the origin of that identity was never supposed to be here. It was supposed to come from above. And when it comes from that, when you derive that sense of self from what he says about you and what you've seen about you in those heavenly places, it doesn't matter what you're doing here at all. You're who you are no matter what. You're who you are no matter the outcome. You're who you are no matter if anyone else says that's who you are. You're still doing it. I was traveling around the heavens. I was doing my job. I was ferrying people around when there wasn't anyone except maybe Melissa and, say, my mom, who thought that what I was doing in the Spirit was worthwhile. Truth be told, I didn't care that much. I'd still be doing it today. I'd still be doing it if no one ever validated what I was doing. It was too good to let go of because it felt like me for the first time in my life. Now, I'm not in any way diminishing fivefold ministry stuff. I think it's important to take that kind of thing seriously, right? Those things are supposed to be around until these perfect things come in. Okay, and then we'll do something different. But it's possible that when you look across the veil, you're probably going to see yourself doing something outside of that fivefold because you're looking for that. Let me get there. I'll say it. You probably say it for me. When you're looking across the veil, you are automatically looking past. Do that. That's not me. Are we good? You're automatically looking past that until when those things are to be replaced with other things. If you're going to look into the heavens, you're going to see beyond the fivefold. When I'm up there, I never think of myself as pursuing some kind of apostolic or prophetic call or whatever it is that I thought would be cool. Then all I see myself doing is being me. Now, I could come up with names for it. I think navigator sounds very noble. Heavenly navigator. It's got a nice ring to it. Maybe we'll add that to the list after the until. Whatever. Who cares? I just do it no matter what that is. I'm bringing this up today because I think there's at least a reason to ask the Lord to reveal more of who you are from that place, from that resurrection you, from that you that comes out of the grave incorruptible, that when you see him, you'll be like him because you'll see him as he is, that you, and to start to see that identity in here. And that supersedes any of these other things, any of these mortal temporal things, or even the mortal temporal callings. I mean, Paul never talked about, I didn't do it again, Josh, I promise. Paul didn't talk about whether or not he would consider himself an apostle like when he left, but I think no. I doubt he would think, and after this, I'm still going to be an apostle. He's doing that for now until. That's why he writes that in there. Until something. And who knows what he gets to do in the heavens. Now, there is a problem when someone decides to do something like this. And it's supposed to happen. Okay, so I just presented the fun part. You get to feel like you, and it should get you out of that sense of what happens if it's successful or not, or I perform well or I don't. It's you no matter what happens. Now, here's the problem. When eternal things and temporal things meet, there's always a conflict. They don't always get along well. When eternal things come into this realm and they meet the temporal things, it's going to cause some turbulence. You should have come in here tonight with a problem. I could call this message, "What's your problem?" Because you should have come in with one. If you're touching eternal things, there should be something that you walked into this room about your temporal life, your mortal life, that you know doesn't match the eternal one. And if you don't have a problem, I might suggest you might not be touching the eternal things. You should have a problem. Some of you are like, got it. Like, how many do you want me to have? I came in with a few. Okay, good for you. You should have a list. Maybe there's some small ones and there's some big ones. I'm not going to tackle the big ones. Don't worry. We'll get to the small ones maybe. Maybe not even that. The point is, you're allowed to have them. You should have them. You should walk in here any given moment with this sense of, I'm looking up here, Jesus. I'm seeing what you've prepared for me, and I'm opening the eyes of my heart. I'm looking across the veil. I'm seeing my own resurrection life even before it's properly been ascertained here. And I'm aware it's different, and I act different, and I certainly don't seem to have the same hang-ups that I do in my mortal sojourn. The eternal meets the temporal, and it should be turbulent. It should cause a problem. The question is, what do you do when that happens? Well, don't feel bad about yourself. That would be counterproductive. You can't be like, well, woe is me. I guess I'm never going to make it. That's not why God's showing you it. He's never bringing it up so that you'll be like, well, I guess I'll just figure it out when I die. He's bringing it up because he's counting on you to not stop growing. He's showing you an end result, and he's telling you the classic equation that my wife reminds me of all the time: you plus Jesus is enough. You plus Christ can get it done. He's showing it to you so you won't rest on your laurels. So you'll keep asking the right questions, and so that you'll keep growing, and that you'll keep wanting the fruit to be born out in your life, that fruit of the Spirit. I think these things will come up all the time, and it's easy, I think, to just get caught up in our pace of life that we all live here. And it's just over, we all know it. Is everyone aware that our pace of life is just too absurdly fast? It just is. I don't even know what you can do about it. Melissa slows us down a lot at home. I'm really grateful for that. She was like, hey, I think we should have a Sabbath. And like me and the kids were like, oh, what's she thinking now? Like anytime mom gets one of these ideas, it's like, you guys can't do that anymore. And so we were like, what are you thinking? And she's like, well, I think we should Friday night to Saturday night, let's turn off the screens. Let's put the devices away. Let's read. Let's spend time with Jesus. Let's play games together. And on the first hearing, me and the kids are like, no, and then we do it and we're like, that feels good. And then we're all so grateful. So poor Melissa, she gets to be the one that's like, I know God's saying this and they're going to fight me on it, but in the end, they're going to be thankful, And it's true. I know you know this. The pace of life is too fast. It's not normal. This is not how people were meant to live. It is so quickly paced because no one has time to stop and think. And the other team, the enemy's team, is counting on it. They're counting on the rushed pace of life keeping you from stopping to think or to ask why. Or when the eternal and the temporal come together and create a problem, the other team is counting on you being too rushed to stop and figure out why the problem is there and how to solve it. And that takes time. You can't do it, and I just, as a joke, I call it Netflix life. You can't do it living Netflix life, where you just kind of get to work, watch your Netflix show, go to bed. Get to work, watch your Netflix show, go to bed. It's just this drone cycle, right? And everything is so paced out. It takes time to ask God, why is this happening? Now, just a fun example, or funny, it depends on how you take it, but just recently, earlier this year, I had this thing happen. Now, I'm not going to tell you what it is in details, but I'm going to be honest about the kind of thing that it was. Did you ever make a mistake, like you forgot to do something that you were supposed to do, and then it ends up costing you big time? I'm saying it generally so you can identify with it, right? Did you ever just mess something up that you really probably should have minded the details and taken care of, but you didn't, and then it ended up being a much bigger problem than it should have been? Well, I had one of those this year. And as soon as it happened, and it was a pretty big one, as soon as it happened, I told Melissa, I'm like, listen, if I die at 82, just know I was supposed to live to 83, and this took a year off my life, Because I'm telling you, my heart sank. I spent a solid 24 hours worried sick over this problem that I had caused because I didn't mind some details about something, and it just kind of blew up, right? So I'm telling you, I am worried sick. I think I've messed things up for the family. It's not a good scene in the Carter house. Now, true to form, Melissa's doing great. She's totally confident God's going to work it out. And I'm just like, how can you be confident God's going to work it out? Like, do you not see what's happening, And she's just smooth sailing through the whole thing, She was like Jesus in the boat taking a nap. And I'm like the disciples, don't you care if we drowned, So she's good, I'm not. Now, in that moment, I really felt the Lord say, hey, why don't you come up here? And why don't you treat this like you've been teaching everybody that we should be treating things when stuff gets even harder than this. So if the world's going to get more topsy-turvy, I think now's a good time to practice. Don't you, Christopher? And I was like, no. Actually, what I want is for someone to show me how I can solve this problem myself and get it done so I can have total confidence in the resolution. Going to you, I'm not sure I get that, So anyway, I'm going to eat my own words here. So of course I go up. And I'm telling you, the Father meets me, and I needed a dad. I needed a dad in that moment. I needed someone to be like, son, let me walk you through how this is going to work out, how you're going to fix it, and how it's all going to be okay. I needed a dad, and I got dad in that moment. And I'm telling you, he fathered me, the Father fathered me so wonderfully. I mean, at first, he just told me what was going to happen. And I was like, I don't like any of the things that you're saying. And he was like, this is what's going to happen. But he said it like, it won't be a big deal. Like, it's going to happen, but I'm going to take care of it. And everything that he told me happened, which does increase your faith a bit. Everything he said would happen actually happened, and it all turned out to not be a big deal. So within a day, this whole situation is resolving itself somewhat miraculously. Melissa's completely vindicated for how she's peaceful and totally in faith through the whole thing. And where does that leave Christopher when it's done? In a problem. Because clearly there's an eternal thing meeting a temporal thing, and there's a conflict. We are not lining up. If my life was in that drone-rushed place, I don't think I ever would have had the chance to stop and go, Lord, we got to find the bottom pancake here. Why am I worried about the things that I'm worried about? And I'm telling this to you all. You have to have the tenacity to keep asking why, to keep pursuing the problem until he shows you the bottom pancake and you can figure out what you believe that isn't right. Because when it comes down to it, all the pancakes before the bottom pancake of the problem are mostly behavioral. You'll get to behavior here. Okay, this behavior comes from how I was raised. Another behavior. And you'll work through a bunch of behaviors before the bottom pancake comes up, and that one's typically a belief. That bottom pancake is almost always you believe something wrong. You absolutely have faith in something that isn't what God is saying. And you have bought it, and it is your belief system. Almost always the bottom pancake has moved past the behaviors and past your childhood and past your rearing and everything else where a lot of traumas come from, and it gets down to a core belief. You have to have the time and the tenacity, the Sabbath rest day if you need it, to ask why until you get to the bottom pancake. And I'm telling you, that ability to be up there in the heavens and ask why is incredibly helpful. To be looking at him when you ask it. To be up in the garden or up in the throne room when you say, Lord, why did that throw me into a deep worry? Why did that throw me into a pit of my stomach? I lost a year of my life. I know Josh was like, you're going to live forever. Why are you talking about dying at 83 or 82? I know. But why did that cause, that's what you were thinking, wasn't it? Why did that cause such a deep, really intense anxiety? What's behind that? And then he starts walking you through it. And all you got to do is trust the first impressions. Let him help you solve the problem. Am I the only one that senses these problems? Do y'all have any of them? Okay, just making sure. Josh, you have one? You got one problem back there? 10? He's 2 hands worth. 4. He said 4. He went from none to 10 to 4. That's probably how we do it really in life, you know. There's a wealth of healing and growth that's available by connecting with that identity and seeing you the way that he sees you. I don't know a better way to do it than to open the eyes of your heart and be on the other side of that veil. When you start walking through stuff and you refuse to stop asking why until you get to a bottom pancake of the problem, you have to be ready for those moments of redefining what you believe. Those moments of him going, you fundamentally think of me this way, and I am not this way. In my case, I don't know if it was the bottom pancake or it was 2 or 3 from the bottom. He hit me with, Christopher, you are waiting for me to abandon you. It's the orphan all over again. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You just want to be in control of it so that you feel like you can predict the outcomes because you're just sure as the world you can't trust me with them because I'll abandon you sooner or later. And I was like, I don't want to agree with you, but let's be real. That's probably right, you know. It's clearly there or I wouldn't respond the way that I did. You okay? And then sometimes, maybe it's going to be true for all of us, he'll work you through the easy things that need to change, and he'll take years working you through the easy things. And then if you keep the eyes of your heart open and you keep seeing you and that resurrected life, and you keep those conflicts going between the eternal and the temporal, and all that keeps happening, eventually he will have worked you through the easy things that you believe wrong, and then he'll finally get to some things that are way harder to give up. And that's the crossroads. That's when he's at the moment where he's about to take you to another side of you that's a bigger taste of the resurrection that you never dreamed possible. That's the moment where he's got all of the easy ones done, and now he's down to some core identities that you've carried, and he's ready to take you in to a view of you that's a bigger change than you have ever imagined. Because at the end and the last analysis, and I think a casual reading of the gospel will get you here, he's imagined a bigger change for you than you have. He's imagined a bigger shift into a resurrection life than you've imagined for yourself. I can guarantee it because it's scriptural. He is able to do above and beyond all that you could ask or think. Isn't that Ephesians 3:20, 19, 20, and 21 in there somewhere? He's thinking of a resurrection you that is a bigger shift than you have imagined for yourself. And most of Christendom is content to wait until they die to be confronted with that change. But you, crazy bunch of people, decided to call yourselves Melchizedek Christian Church, as if it was your intent from the beginning to put on a kingly, priestly, everlasting kingdom priest garb like Melchizedek did, and to put on the resurrection even before it's properly come. And that's not my fault. You did that. You're the ones that decided, what do we want to name ourselves? I don't know. Let's take the most eternal thing that we can find that was living the resurrection before it ever was even talked about being a thing, and let's make that the title for our church. So you're in it whether you like it or not. You came. Some of you are like, I'm questioning the choice to be here right now. You probably should. This isn't normal. It's not a normal thing. Most people are content to wait until they die to be confronted with that change. Except Jesus and everyone that will stick with him. It's just a question of, will you stick with him? Everyone that stuck with him was confronted with the eternal meeting the temporal and the knowledge that he's imagined a bigger change for you than you have. That's his disciples. A lot of people followed. A lot of people believed. Not everyone was a disciple. Not everyone thought, I'll follow you no matter where it takes me, no matter where we go, no matter how much it changes me, I'll follow you. That's the people who won't wait until they die to find out what happens when Christ transforms a person the way that Christ really wants to transform a person. And if you think that I'm talking to you from the other side of the crossroads, I am not. I'm talking to you from within it right now. I'm talking to you as someone who has looked across the veil for 12 years, and I've been growing for 12 years. Melissa and I can testify all day long. We did this weekend. We're growing in some things great. Others are taking way longer than we would like. But nevertheless, we're growing. And you'll hit a point where he's worked through the easy ones, and now he's at the crossroads. And he's going, where do you want to go from here? Do you want to keep going? Do you want to see the change that I've imagined for you? Or do you want to just put it in a box that you're comfortable with, that will let you live out your American dream, have your successes, work through some failures, enjoy all the good stuff, and then you'll figure it out when you die? Or would you like to follow me? And I'll take you on the road I took my disciples. There's no way, and I'll be honest, listen, I'm not ready to die for a cause, but they were. And the only reason that they were ready for that is because they had already put on that resurrection garment. And they knew who they were. They'd hit the crossroads. They went across it. And man, their lives after Pentecost, and you read the stories, especially of the 12, and how he sends them to the corners of the earth, and how they even meet their ends, and they were glorious ends that they met. These are men outside of time. These are women outside of the temporal status quo. They hit the crossroads and they kept going. I'm not telling you, we're not going to have an altar call tonight. I never do that, so don't worry. I'm not about to pray for you like I used to try to do when I was trying to be an apostle, We're not going to do that because I don't even want to rush it. I don't even want to tell you we're going to solve anything. It's for you to work out. I guess the only advice I can give you is slow down enough to do it. Slow down enough. You want to do something rebellious and defiant? I don't know, stick it to the man and tell him the world system's not for you and do something radically different. And stop long enough to keep asking why until you get to the bottom pancake. Or keep opening the eyes of your heart to see your resurrection life until the eternal meets the temporal and causes you a big problem. And then embrace the problem. And don't get down on yourself because it's there. Just recognize he's just bringing you to that place. That's all he's doing. Are we all okay? Josh, you're okay.
I got problems.
You got problems, but you're okay. Great, you're in the right place, Josh. I'm happy that you have problems. If you didn't, I would worry. And there's a little bit, I'm going to wrap this up, y'all, but there's almost been a bit of a trend in Christendom that we're not even supposed to have them. We're not supposed to have the problems. We're just I am blessed and highly favored, and I am living the abundance and the limitless everything right now. You know what I mean? You know those folks, they're just I have zero problems because Christ is in me, and therefore, in their life, there's dumpster fires in multiple places. but they're just telling themselves those dumpster fires aren't there, but everyone around them is like, there are major dumpster fires, you know. That's not being real. And I don't even think that's what Jesus wants. You know, like I think he wants the problem. He wants the eternal to meet the temporal and to cause some turbulence. Why don't y'all stand up with me? Let's just have a moment with him, shall we?